Hi, I'm Ron Nutter, and welcome to another edition. I'll get the mic moved up here a little bit to Tech Bites with Ron Nutter. This time, we're going to go to part 3 of how to deal with a power outage situation. And this time, we're going beyond having just the UPS to where you can see here. We're going to have, well, I'm starting out with a marine battery. I'm looking at some other options, but that was what was affordable I could get my hands on. Then we have a smart charger from a company here that I found in Kansas City, and then we've got an inverter. So the three together is that the battery will connect to the inverter, and the inverter changes the DC power out of the battery to AC, so you can plug things into it. And then we've got to have a way to recharge the battery, so that's where the charger comes in, and we'll see how everything fits together. So it's really, this is probably the next logical step, because you will find that a UPS, especially like if you got the one that I've started with, will get you about an hour and 15 minutes. A little more, a little less, depends on the age of the battery and the load and so on. But you've seen in my previous video the load that it has on there. So the next step is we're going to go in and let me punch the right button here. I think I've got it. Okay. Now that's the front panel of the inverter, and this is with it turned on. So you're going to see, can I get my picture out of the way here? Yeah, let's just do that. You'll see this has been running now at this voltage level, it was running for about 3 hours. It's producing 60 hertz. And this is 120 volt output. So all I did to move things over to it is I just pulled the UPS plug out of the wall and plugged it into the inverter. So that was really all that it took. Now, let me get another picture of the inverter over here, and let's drag it over here. Oh, come on. This does not want to play nice today for some reason. All right, let's take picture in picture. Oh, I know why it didn't do it, because it could. All right, so let's go here, and there we go. So this is how everything is wired up. Now, these are the cables that were supplied with the inverter that I got, and there is links to this in the show notes to the one I got off Amazon. I mean, they make ones. This is was a 1200 watt model. They make ones that are higher. They make ones that are smaller. But I thought this one was good, kind of the middle range, based on what I was able to see that was needed. So these are both screw terminals on the back. So I put the negative cable, and I always start with negative first. So I connected that cable there, and because I'm running in a fairly small space, and you don't have to have a large amount of space to do this, I just kind of did a little loop in the cable so it wasn't going and fighting with other things that were there. So I hooked up the cable, and those are just, when I say finger tightened, it's a firm finger tighten. What you don't want to do is just take a wrench to this and just tighten it as tight as it'll go, because A, that's going to make it that much harder when you have to take it off, and B, you could either damage the nut or possibly strip some of the threads. Now, these little caps you see here, the black and red ones, were actually shipped with the battery when I picked it up. So I've just kept them there in case I ever have to disconnect the battery. I could put those back over the terminals, and they're set to go. Now, the next thing to do from the picture you see here is I've hooked the red cable here. Now, be prepared for a slight spark, and we're talking quarter of a second, if that long, because there are some circuitry down in the inverter that has no power in it, and it's going to get an initial charge from that. So you see a little bit of a spark. Don't let that concern you, and then you'll be ready to go. So you could technically run off the battery. I would suggest not, and here's why: because you don't really know the condition of that battery. So what we'll do is we'll then bring in the smart charger that I'm calling it, and we'll bring that over here. Now, this is the ProLogix. It's a PL1213, and you'll see the links to it in the show notes. I found a company here in Kansas City, and actually how I found them is when I spoke to the folks at Duracell looking for a charger they were comfortable with, because what you've got to be cognizant of is you don't want to charge the battery at a rate faster than what it can handle. And from the model of Duracell battery that I've got, this is where they said they didn't recommend, since it was a 90 amp hour battery, they didn't recommend it being charged in excess of 30 amps. So I picked up a charger that was well below that. So you can see here it's got 3 different settings: 2 amp, 6 amp, 10 amp. 2 amp is if I'm in no hurry to get it back to full charge. 6 amps is where, if I want it back fairly soon, but I don't think I'm going to need it for several hours. And if I want it back to full reserve fairly quick, then I'll go 10 amp. I try to use the slowest charging rate I can based on when I think I need the battery again, because I want to be easy with the battery and not push it too hard. Now, you may see another video here that this has an auto select logic to it. It figures out what battery it's on, and it's unfortunately not the case, and I verified this with the manufacturer. So it will sense if it's on a 6 or 12 volt battery. That's easy enough to do. But you will have, you see gel cell, AGM, which is glass mat, and then you have standard. Now, since I'm using a marine deep cycle battery, and this is considered a flooded battery because it has the battery cell covers on the top, and I can add liquid to it, so I would charge it as standard. So when I first bring this to power, I make sure immediately I get it on standard and then select the charge where I want. Now, it should go into charge automatically. If for some reason you just want to make sure, then you can press the charge button and it will show you the percent of charge it believes the battery to be at, and will, depending on the state of discharge, gradually bring it back into the picture. So this is an ideal way to charge the battery, because you don't want to just put a generator on it and just full bore charge into it. You want to bring it up slowly, because if you charge a battery too fast, then it starts building up gas within the battery, and in some cases it can do damage to the battery if you try to charge it too quickly. So I try to err on the side of caution, and that caution has served me well, because I have been able to get several years past, as a general rule, what a manufacturer says the battery can do, because I try to be careful on keeping it on some sort of trickle charge and then not discharging it past the recommended point, because that can do as much damage or more, because you're pushing the battery past what it was designed for. So the main thing is when you're looking at this version of dealing with Power Outage Part 3, okay, now we're taking it beyond just the few minutes of being a power loss, or maybe a half hour, maybe 45 minutes, and now you're in for a longer term situation. So do you need to do this? It all depends on your situation. Unfortunately, where I live in Kansas City, I lose power probably about once a quarter, and I just lost it a couple of weeks ago, and I was out for in excess of 3 hours. So in my case, I do have both, the part just using a UPS, because that gets me through a short-term outage, and then the deep cycle battery and the smart charger will get me through a longer term situation. And normally about once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks, I run a full system check on it, so that I will run, say, the UPS until the battery's at 50%. Once it's at that point, then I go back to normal power. Then on another day, I will start out the day running on the inverter, and I will run for probably 6 to 7 hours, again, until I'm seeing the battery hit that 50% level. Then I go back to regular AC power, just so that I'm used to, if I've got to move cables or if I've got to make other changes, that I'm comfortable with what's doing. Because if you're not comfortable with moving some cables around and you don't remember the sequence, if you've got to move something in a certain way, then you'll become very frustrated when you do have to make a change. It should be a very natural situation. So everything that we've talked about in the video so far, I've got in the description for the video. Those are affiliate links, so if you do get those, I do get a small commission out of that. That goes to help fund what I've got on the channel. Just to let you know where we're looking going in the future, the next video I'm working on, I've actually got 2 solar panels and I've got a solar controller. Again, you can't just take solar panels out and hook them up to a battery. So the solar controller will change the voltage around it, will convert what's coming off the panels, which is at 24 volts, converts it down to 12, which is the battery I've got. And because of that change, now I can charge at a higher amperage rate. So I can actually, and I already run one test on it for over 2 hours. I ran off solar panels. So I had the solar panels feeding the battery, and then I pulled power off the battery. So it was kind of a pass-through situation. But again, it's just becoming familiar with it, getting into a routine. So it's pretty straightforward once you get into it. If you've got any questions, please reach out to me. I'm also going to be looking at some sort of generator, and the generator right now I probably would not look as a long-term solution, because then you get into the challenges of having sufficient gas supply on hand, having the gas fresh, having to use a gas stabilizer if you're trying to keep it for several months. So each option we're presenting here is going to have its own set of pros and cons. So at least it is an option. It's better than not doing anything, and then you're left with no power and no ability to work if you do work from home. So that's where we stand at this point. So going to take things one step at a time. Please make sure as you do this, and let me bring this up here. As you add items to your smart home, make sure you get this checklist. This is something that will help you get things organized. So as you add some more smart home technology to your house, that you'll know what you've got, when you put it in, the support phone numbers. You won't have to go looking some of these things up, and even support email, because some companies prefer to deal with you over email. So this is something very good to have for everything that you've got in your smart home. So it's just taking it one step at a time. Don't try to do this all at once. Do it as you become more comfortable with it. Now, when we get into the solar panels, and I'm also looking at another type of battery option that will be the next step up from a marine deep cycle battery. There's going to be some math involved, and I'm trying to make sure that I've got my hands firmly wrapped around that, so that I don't give you some incorrect information. I'm going to show you basically the decisions I made, why I made it, and then we'll go on from there. There are other videos, not only in the series that I've got here, and
4 hours after
press the wrong button. Got to watch how many buttons. There are other videos in the series, so you'll see links here to others you can look at. There will also be some links within the show notes. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you everybody who subscribed to the channel so far, and we'll see you in the next time. Take care.